The length of the gown is 57 inches, so when you fold the center piece into two, the length should be way longer than 30. That is way longer than 60 when opened up. The height is 2.5 inches when folded into two, and when you open it up it becomes 5 inches. The height is 2.5 inches because 2 inches was removed from the front piece during cutting. Note this, the center line of the center piece is very important because that center line is actually the joining point of both center pieces. That is why when we were folding this center piece, we made use of a pressing iron to create that gator line. Both center pieces are totally identical. That is what I did for one, I did exactly the same for the other. That is, I added interface to the wrong face of both center pieces and also used my pressing iron to create a center line. To start our cutting process, the first thing I did was to make two separate cuts, one for the front and the other for the back, and each as long as 59 inches, and I folded them into two. So 59 inches because the length of our gown is 57 inches. I'll start by taking the back measurement, which is 8 inches. So I'll mark 8 inches. So after that, from that point, I'll mark out my sleeve measurement. My sleeve measurement is 13, so I'll be marking 13.5. And that ½ inch would be for the folding allowance. So I'll mark 13.5. After marking the sleeve, I'll mark the width of our neck, which is 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 inches from there like that. So that will make it the third point I'm marking on that shoulder line. Then I'll go to that sleeve point and go 1 inch downwards. After marking 1 inch downwards, from that 4 inches point, I'll make a slant line to the 1 inch downwards mark I took just now. And that will be the shoulder slant. So the shoulder slant would start from the neck to the sleeve. On making that slant line, we've succeeded in creating our first horizontal line. So I'll be confirming the neck measurement and I'll be rechalking it. I'll go straight to the neck depth. So for my neck depth, I'll be marking 8 inches downwards. After marking that 8 inches depth mark, I'll be making a line on that point. So I'll create a line on that 8 inches mark, and I'll be marking 2 inches on that line. After marking 2 inches on that line, I'll make a point, and from that point I'll be joining that point to my neck width. My neck width is actually the 4 inches mark I took on the shoulder line. So I'll be joining from that 2 inches mark to my neck width. Then I'll be making subsequent 2 inches mark from that 8 inches mark downwards. After which I'll be joining all the 2 inches mark with a straight line. After making sure the 2 inches line gets to the down line, I'll start making subsequent horizontal lines to the shoulder line. And the first parallel one I'll make would be the bust line. The bust line will also be our sleeve armhole line. So it will be 11 inches from the top, and I'll be taking 11 inches from subsequent positions. So after marking that point, I will go further a bit, take 11 inches again, then make another mark. All points I'm creating, I'll be joining with a straight line, and that straight line would be our bust line and also our armhole line. To be clear, each person has their own distinct measurements, so you don't just use 11 inches for everybody you're working with. So do well to take the measurements of your client if you are sewing for your client, or on yourself if you are sewing for yourself. Just take the measurements from your shoulder to your bust point. So that's that. So the next measurement I'll be taking is my half length measurement, or should I say my tummy line measurement, and that is 16 inches. But I'll be marking 16.5 inches because ½ inch will actually be lost when we are joining both shoulder lines together. I'll be joining both positions with a straight line. On doing so, I would have succeeded in creating my tummy line or I can also say my half length line. The next line would be the hip line. The hip line would also be taken from the shoulder, and the hip from the shoulder is 26 inches, but I'll be marking 26 and a half because, like I did earlier, half inch would also be chopped off when we are joining the shoulder piece of the front and the back. So I'll be marking 26 and a half on different positions, and I'll be joining both points to get my hip line. When you are placing your tape rule to get your point, make sure it is straight, because if it is slant, you'll be getting the wrong lines. So on joining both points together, I would have succeeded in creating my hip line. Then after the hip line, what is left would be for the length of the gown. So the first line is the shoulder line, the second line is the bust line, the third line is the half length line, and the fourth line is the hip line. And what is left would be a replica of the hip line. After creating all our horizontal lines, we'll start working on the sleeve. So I'll go to that 13.5 inches point I took, and I'll make a straight line downwards. But our sleeve will not actually be straight downwards, and this is because if it is straight downwards, the inner workings of the downline would be showing out when you wear your sleeve. So I'll check the round arm of the sleeve. I like it the way it is. Then I'll come inwards by 1 inch. That 1 inch I'll be joining to the tip of the sleeve to get my slant. I don't want the sleeve to be straight, so I want it to be slant because I don't want the inner workings of the downline of the sleeve to be showing. To cut the fabric to be used to turn this slanted sleeve round arm line is a bit technical, and I'll be showing you how to do that, so do well to follow. The bust measurement we are working with is 38 inches. So 38 will be divided by 4, and that is 9.5. We are dividing it by 4 because if you notice, the front piece was divided into 2 and the back piece was divided into 2. So all divisions will amount to 4. So I'll mark the division, which is 9.5 inches. I would also be adding an excess of 1.5 inches for ease. That 1.5 inches in total will amount to 6 inches, because if you times 1.5 times 4, it will become 6. Then I would also be adding 1 inch for sewing allowance, and that is for the bust. Now for the tummy, our tummy is 30 inches. So I will go to the half length line. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. I'll mark 7.5. Then I would also be marking 1.5 for the ease, and also 1 for the sewing allowance. The hip is 42 inches. 42 divided by 4 is 10.5. So I'll be marking 10.5, and I would also be marking 1.5 and also 1 inch. After marking these 3 points, I'll be joining all these 3 points with a curve, and that curve will actually give us the shape of what we want. That is, the bust will go inwards to the tummy, and the tummy will come outwards to the hip. So from the bust, I will make a curve to the tummy, and from the tummy, I will make an outwards curve to the hip. Then when I get to the hip, I will make that hip measurement go downwards like that. But I'll be taking an inner slant on the downline of the gown. So there will be an inner slant. The measurement will not just be straight down. But before any other thing, I'll make a curve to blend that shape to the sleeve. So I'll make sure the shape and the sleeve actually blend. So the joining of the shape and the sleeve will not be a right angle joining, it will be a curve. So after which, I will adjust the material for you to see the workings of the downline. Before I make any slant of whatsoever sort on the downline, I would first of all extend the measurement of the hip downwards. After cutting the front piece, I placed the front piece on the back piece, so you can see me using my pins to hold down the front piece on the back piece fabric. So the back piece would be cut to be exactly the same shape and size with that of the front piece. We've succeeded in cutting the front and the back piece, and what you see me doing now is removing the pins. The pins that were used to hold down the front on the back piece fabric before cutting out the back piece. So after removing the pins, I will be able to separate the front from the back. So I will not touch the back, but I'll still be working on the front piece. What I'll be doing on the front piece would be to cut out the 2 inches center point we made when we were actually drafting our pattern. I'll start from the neckline, the 4 inches point on the neckline. I'll cut to as deep as the 8 inches mark, then from that point I'll go down. I'll notch the 8 inches mark because that point is actually vital when we are joining the center piece. I'll just follow that 2 inches mark and cut straight downwards. To start working on the front piece, the first thing I did was to make a 2 inches line on the down line, and that is our folding line. From that line, I'll mark my slit. My slit will be from that line upwards, and I'll mark 12 inches from that line. That 12 inches point would be where my slit will start from. My slit will start from that 12 inches point to the folding line. It will end at the folding line. Then I will make a notch at the 12 inches mark point. This notch is vital because while joining the center pieces, those center pieces too will contain a notch at the 12 inches mark, so it will make the joining process very easy. The distance of that 8 inches point from the top to the 12 inches mark is very important. You have to know the length between the 8 inches point at the top and the 12 inches at the downline. As you can see, what we got is 37. And you also need to know the distance from the 12 inches point downwards, and what we got is 14 inches. So from that 12 inches downwards is 14 inches. These are very important, these measurements, because when you are joining your center piece, that 8 inches point to the 12 inches point is important, and that 12 inches point downwards is also important, because your two center pieces will join each other from 14 inches, then it will join with a distance of 37 inches upwards. So when it gets to 37, you will stop the joining. So what I'm trying to say is, when you have your two center pieces like this, you will open it up. After opening it up, you open both, then you will join both at the center line, the center gator line. But you just don't join, you measure before you join. You measure 14 inches from the down line and mark. After you measure 14 inches, you will mark. After you measure 37 inches from that 14 inches mark and mark again. What this means is you will join from that 14 inches point to the 37 inches point. After joining to the 37 inches point, what this means is you've succeeded in joining the part of the center piece from the 12 inches point to the 8 inches point of the front pieces. What I'm just trying to say is, just make your 37 inches mark from the 14 inches point. After making your mark, then join both pieces from that 14 inches point to the 37 inches point. That is all the joining you would do for the center pieces of this Kimono Bubu Kaftan. We've joined from that 14 inches point to the 8 inches point, and the distance between both points is 37 inches. So after joining both, I will open it up for you to see. So if I open it up, you will see the slit on the downside and the slit on the upper side. The slit on the upper side is actually your neck space, while the slit on the downside is just a form of design and a form of opening for your legs to walk freely. Now we will be joining the front pieces to these center pieces, and I'll be showing you how. I'll place the left side on the left side of the center piece, then I'll place the right side on the right side of the center piece. Mind you, I notched the front pieces of the outfit at the 14 and 8 inches mark. I also notched that at the 14 and 8 inches mark as well on the center piece. So if I want to join, it will be very easy for me to join. And I might just even start joining from the down line and join upward, because everything is just the same measurement. So any way I choose to go about it, all will work out fine. So the slit is the 14 inches mark, which is on the fabric and also on the center piece. So for the upper part, the slit also begins from the 8 inches mark. For the actual joining process, I'll place the center piece on the right side of the front piece, right face facing right face. Then I will make a half-inch stitch from the down line up until the 8 inches point. Then after which both of them would have been joined together, then I will make a top stitch on the fabric, holding the sewing excesses down. So I will make a top stitch on the fabric, not on the plain black material, on the fabric, holding the sewing excesses underneath down. I'll do exactly the same for the other side too. I've successfully joined both front pieces to the center piece, and it's looking perfect. So I made use of my pressing iron to straighten things as well. So you could see that notch, everything aligned well with the slit. Now I sew it upwards even more than the 8 inches point. I actually stopped 2 inches before the tip of the neckline. So I just leave that 2 inches gap for me to join the front to the back piece. I am yet to cut out the neckline of the back piece, and I'll be doing so now. I'll mark 4 inches, then I'll mark 1.5 inches downwards. Then I'll join both points with a curve, and that will be the neckline of my back piece. After which I will cut off what I just marked out now. Then I'll go straight to the joining process of the front and the back piece. I would also be showing you how to make your neckline not have gaping when you are actually joining your center piece to the neck of the back piece. So stay tuned to see that. I'll be joining the front piece to the back piece in a really straightforward way, and that will be right face facing right face. So the right face will face the right face of the front piece will face the right face of the back piece, and I will make a stitch from the sleeve to the neck. I'll do the same for the other side. After joining on the shoulder line, I'll turn it over to the right face. Then I'll start working on the neckline. I promised to show you how to fix your 2.5 inches center band on the neckline, that is the back of the neckline, and how to avoid gaping when doing that, and I'll be showing you exactly how to do that now. First, I'll mark the center of the back of the neck. After marking the center of the back of the neck, I'll be making use of pins to hold down the 2.5 inches fabric on the back of the neckline. Then I will hold it down up until the center I marked. So I'll be using that pin to hold it down carefully. When I get to that line, I'll stop for one side, then I'll go to the other side and do the same. Now, holding it down to that point I marked is just the first part of the job, because the most important thing is the way I join both 2.5 inches pieces together. That will determine how it will be after the joining process, because if you just join them like that, there will always be gaping. But there is a way you join it that there will be no gaping, and that is what I want to show you. So I'm on the other side now, making use of my pins to hold it down. So I don't want to assume anything, that is why I'm actually holding it down, after which I will start the actual work. I already cut the excesses of the left side, and I'll be showing you how I did that by doing so on the right side. So I'll place my ruler to follow that gator on the back line, the gator I made with my pressing iron on the back. So that back neckline gator, I'll follow it on the 2.5 inches pieces. So I'll draw a straight line on that piece, then I will make a cut. The cut I will make would be 1/2 inch away from that line. There is another slant I will make, and I'll be showing you after I make that cut. So the way I did the other part is exactly what I just showed you now. The next thing I'll be doing now will be to show you how to make that slant. There is a slant I will make on the edge of that cut I just finished making now. The slant is actually our gaping repellent. The slant is actually what will not make you have any form of gaping. So what we'll do is we'll just make a straight cut. The cut would be from the down line to the initial line I made. So you understand what I mean now? From the down, I will make a straight cut to the initial line I made. So it is not going to be a straight line, it's going to be a slant line. So from the down line of the 2.5 inches band, I will make a cut to the upper part of the 2.5 inches band. So from the down line, I'll make a straight line to the upper part of the 2.5 inches part. So that line I took from the neck. So that is how I got the slant, and I'll be doing the same for the other side too. So I'll just use one part to cut out the other part just to make things perfect. So you could see the slant. That slant is actually what will remove any form of gaping on your back neckline. So I just thought of it when I started making the kimono Bubu dress, that I should do something significant, something unique, something that will just make this different from every other video you've been watching. So if you follow very well, you see that most people, after making their gowns, there's always a little ripple folding on the back of the neckline. So this slant I'm creating now will actually remove that folding. At the same time, it will still give you the exact measurements of your back neckline. So you will just join both together. After joining both together, you will join back to your neckline. By just using my hand to place both together, you would see that it is already looking like something that will come out perfect. The other way I thought of doing it was not to make a 1.5 deep when I was cutting the back neckline. So I'll make a notch at the top of that slant like that, so that when I'm joining, I will know exactly where the center point of both pieces are. So I'll just open it right face facing right face, then make a 1/2 inch stitch. Like I was saying earlier, the other way I thought of doing this was not to make any dip when I was cutting the back of the neck. I wanted the neck to just be straight. but this is also better. After joining both slants, I will show you a rough view of what we are to have when we use our pressing iron to make things perfect. So I will just close it up like that, and you can see how perfect it is. So you can see that U shape it forms at the back of the neckline. It is just perfect. You can see that U shape. So everything just goes like that, goes round. So when it gets to the center part of the back neck, it goes down a bit, then it goes up again, just like that. So that is how a perfect neckline should be when you don't want gaping. So I'll open it up. After opening it up, I'll make use of my pressing iron to do the opening, and I'll hold it down like that before I close it up again. Then after closing it up, I will now stitch it to the back part of my neck line, and that will be the final part of the workings of the center piece. After joining the center piece to the back of the neckline, you can see that U shape it formed. That U shape it formed is actually the shape I was expecting. That is what you get if you are to get a perfect neckline when you are making a kimono bubu kaftan. I also made a top stitch on the fabric on each of the joining points from the downline to the neckline. I'll be going straight to the sleeve now. For the sleeve, you can see it is slanted, not straightforward. So I also cut out the piece I'll be using in turning it out, and that is also as slanted as the sleeve is. So if you see the shape, you would see that they are of the same shape. So the piece I'll be using to turn the sleeve is also slanted. So when I open it up, you will see the shape it has. It is not actually straight. You can see how slanted it is. I'll place the right face of the piece, the black piece, on the wrong face of the sleeve. That's the sleeve of the outfit. Then I'll make a half-inch stitch, after which I'll turn to the right face of the sleeve. After joining, you can see what we got. So I'll just turn it to the other side, and I'll make a top stitch on the edge of the fabric, not the black piece. That stitch will also hold down the sewing excesses underneath it. Then I will turn it to the other side to cover the right face. After covering the right face, I'll make use of my pressing iron to make sure the other part is not showing. Then I will top stitch on the edge of the black piece like that. And I'll go straight to the making of the pocket afterwards. After rounding up my sleeve band, I'll be fixing the pockets, and I'll be considering two measurements while doing so. One is the vertical measurement from the shoulder, which is 21 inches, and the other is the horizontal measurement from the black center piece, which is 3/4 inch. So on considering these two measurements, I will mark out the perfect position to fix each of my pockets, and both will be exactly the same position they are on each side. Then after fixing my pocket, I will make a top stitch on the side of the pocket, and that will be only on the front piece. After which I will join the side of my gown from the sleeve downwards like that on both sides. Then I will go straight to the downline and bend to my desired length.